First contact, the culling of Karex 9. The old warrior's breath rattled like a dying engine as he lit another smoking stick. His voice, gravelled by years of war and age, carried across the dim-lit barracks to the listening cadets. They sat in a tight circle around him, wide-eyed and tense, as if each word he spoke might drag them into the past. "You wanted to know about the humans," Xal'thari said, his lipless mouth curling in something between a grimace and a smile. "I'll tell you. But don't expect a tale of glory." He leaned forward, letting the smoke swirl around his scaled features. It started on Karex 9. A jungle moon, humid and dense. We believed it was a forward outpost of a lesser species, nomadic scavengers. Our scans showed low-tech settlements, minimal orbital defense. Easy pickings. That was our first mistake. The cadets shifted uncomfortably. My unit was dropped in just after local twilight. Perfect timing, perfect terrain. Our stealth armor would make us ghosts in that low light. But the moment we hit the canopy, the forest changed. It was too quiet. No insects. No birds. Just the sound of our boots crunching over dry leaves, and the faintest echo of something else. Breathing. Xal'thari exhaled slowly. The humans were watching us. He tapped ash into a cracked ration tin. They didn't attack right away. They waited. Herded us without our noticing. One by one, my soldiers started disappearing. No screams, no gunfire. Just gone. Then the bodies started turning up. His eyes drifted for a moment. One of them was my second-in-command. Vornax. Toughest bastard I ever served with. We found him hanging upside down, throat slit, gear missing, blood used to scrawl something on the tree bark. He paused. "Run." A murmur went through the cadets. Xal'thari let it settle before continuing. We tried to pull back. That was our second mistake. They wanted us to retreat, to move into their kill zone. Claymore equivalents, tripwires made of razorvine, even trained native fauna used as alarms or weapons. One of our heavy gunners got dragged off by something that looked like a jaguar but was wearing human-crafted armor. The old warrior coughed. We radioed for evac. No response. Turned out they'd jammed us. Not with tech, but with atmospheric distortion. Set half the jungle on fire behind us, created an ionized haze. Primitive. Brutal. Effective. The young aliens listening were now silent, frozen, hanging on every word. By day 4, we were down to 6 out of 30. I saw one of my soldiers shoot himself in the head to avoid falling into their hands. Said he'd rather die clean. I understood. I still do. One cadet finally spoke up, voice shaking. "Why didn't you call in orbital support?" "We did," Xal'thari said quietly. "But by then, the humans had taken over our forward observation post. Used our own comms array to feed false coordinates to the fleet. They bombarded their own men thinking it was us. I watched a whole drop battalion vaporized because of a human voice mimicking my accent over comms." He stared hard at the cadets now. "We only survived because I ordered a scorched sky protocol. Leveled the jungle. Killed everything. Friend and foe. But the humans, they were already gone. They'd vanished hours before. They knew we'd resort to it." Xal'thari leaned back. Karex 9 was classified a tactical victory in our logs. But those of us who survived, we called it what it was, a culling. One cadet, bolder than the others, asked, "But why didn't Command warn anyone about how dangerous they were?" Xal'thari looked at the ceiling as if remembering a distant star. "Because Command didn't believe us. They saw humans as animals with sharp sticks. They couldn't grasp what we'd seen. The improvisation. The fearlessness. The intelligence. And the rage." He stubbed out the smoking stick. "You want to fight humans," he growled. "Pray you never have to. Because they don't fight to win battles. They fight to end them. Even if it ends them too." The barracks fell silent. Far away, a war horn sounded, signaling the end of the lecture cycle. The cadets stood slowly, their faces pale. The bold one looked back once before leaving, eyes full of something new. Not fear. Respect. The hive burn incident. They lit the sky on fire. The storm outside the debriefing chamber rattled the durasteel walls, but inside, the silence was thick. Cadets sat upright now, no longer eager listeners, but soldiers in training marked by the weight of Threxer's words. He sipped from a steaming cup of krell root brew, his hand steady despite the tremor in his voice. You think the humans were just jungle phantoms? That Virex 9 was a fluke, he asked, eyes sweeping across the room. Let me tell you what they did to a fortress world. Someone whispered, Hive burn. Threxer nodded once. Hive World 17b. 5 billion Xal'thari lived there. Triple-layer planetary shields, orbital cannon arrays, a full-time defense fleet. No enemy had breached its surface in over 3 centuries. He paused, letting the scale of it settle in. And in less than 48 hours, the humans made it burn like a newborn star. The room held its breath. It started with whispers. Data corruption in low-tier monitoring satellites. Then a blackout in Subspine Alpha, one of the deepest mining cities. Command assumed it was a quake. He grunted. Wrong. Our recon drones finally caught movement in the waste zones, figures in hard suits, too small to be Xal'thari. They moved like ghosts, always near reactor nodes or waste fusion hubs. We tried to intercept. Sent 4 patrols. None returned. Threxer leaned forward. We didn't understand it at the time, but they weren't just sabotaging power lines. They were planting bombs, rigged fusion cores scavenged from derelict freighters. Improvised weapons of terrifying scale, planted in geothermal veins and fusion waste shafts. It was elegant and apocalyptic. He clenched a fist. Then came the detonation. One by one, entire cities vanished in mushroom clouds of green-blue plasma. Emergency systems tried to contain the spread, failed. Shockwaves ruptured tectonic plates. Lava vents opened in the sky. A third of the hive world was reduced to slag in hours. Cadets shifted, horrified. Command finally traced the source. 5 humans, exo-armored, jacked into a comms relay. They were transmitting an open-frequency message. He paused, voice low. This is retribution for Virex 9. Threxer let the silence linger before continuing. We targeted them. Full orbital strike. Vaporized the relay tower. Nothing left. But it was too late. Chain reactions had already begun. Thermal resonance cascaded from reactor to reactor. They'd calculated it all. One of the planetary cores, yes, cores, collapsed. Sent molten debris into orbit. Entire moons were cracked. The fleet had to jump before the atmosphere ignited. A cadet gasped. You mean? Yes, Threxer nodded. The atmosphere itself caught fire. I saw it from the evacuation deck, a wall of flame rising into the stratosphere. Cities exploding in sequence. It looked like the world was trying to give birth to a star. He looked down at his hands. I lost 2 regiments. Friends. Commanders. Civilians. The official record lists Hiveburn as a reactor chain failure due to seismic instability. But the truth. 5 humans, maybe 6, brought down a world. One cadet raised his hand, cautiously. But why didn't they escape? If they had comms, why not extract? Threxer locked eyes with him. Because they weren't trying to survive. They were trying to send a message. He let that hang, then continued. They didn't see themselves as soldiers. Not like us. They were weapons. Blunt, burning instruments of vengeance. They knew they wouldn't make it off the planet. That didn't stop them. He sipped from the cup again, more slowly now. I've studied war for over a century. Fought Turek raiders, void-clad marauders, even the Karn spawn during their genetic rebellion. None of them ever committed to destruction like humans do. Another cadet, the bold one from before, asked softly, Do they always fight like that? Threxer laughed, but there was no humor in it. No. Sometimes they fight worse. Sometimes they get creative. The lights flickered as thunder cracked overhead. But always, he said, his voice now almost reverent, they fight as if they've got nothing to lose. And that makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. He stood, creaking with age and old injuries, and gathered his cloak. "Remember Hiveburn not for its destruction," he said, "but for what it taught us, that humans are not fighting to win. They're fighting to never be prey again." He turned and left, his silhouette swallowed by the misted corridor. The cadets didn't move for a long time. Outside, lightning flashed. Inside, every mind was haunted by the image of a burning sky, and the ones who lit the match. Prisoners, the ones who laughed in the dark. The training chamber's lights had dimmed by the time Threxer returned. His gait was slower now, and his breath carried the rhythm of memory, heavy and uneven. No one spoke as he entered. He didn't sit this time. He stood in the center, as if the weight of the next story was too heavy to deliver from a chair. "You think you've heard horror," he began, voice low. "You haven't. Not until you've held a human prisoner." He let that sentence hang like smoke in the air. "I was stationed at the Xal'thari detention complex after Hiveburn. You've probably heard the name in classified files. Deep space black site. No diplomats. No oversight. Just us, the guards, and them." He tapped the side of his skull. "Command wanted intelligence. Blueprints. Codes. Leadership structures. Anything. They thought we could extract answers from human prisoners the same way we did from the rest of the galaxy." He paused. "They were wrong. There were 5 humans in the first wave, captured during a failed assault on a fuel depot orbiting Velos Prime. They were starved, wounded, dehydrated. One of them had a fractured femur. We expected them to break in days." Threxer's face twitched. "They started laughing within hours." He scanned the cadets. Not mad laughter. Not terror. Something else. Amusement. Like the situation was temporary. Like we were the ones being tested. One of our interrogators used a neural scream injector, normally causes collapse within minutes. The human stared through it. Bleeding from the eyes, still smiling. When asked why, he said, "Because you think pain is leverage. It's not. It's fuel." Threxer began pacing slowly. "We tried isolation. Solitary dark for 6 days. On extraction, the subject whispered something to the guard that made him put a bolt round through his own skull. We never found out what he said." The cadet sat, rigid with disbelief. "By week 2, we stopped trying to break them. We just watched. Studied. They were communicating in coded taps, muscle twitches, even the way they walked past one another in the corridor. Silent language. Pre-planned escape behaviors." He turned toward the observation window. "We were told it was impossible. The entire facility was on lockdown. Gravity anchors. Neurocollar locks. Automated defense drones. They still got out." A cadet whispered, "How?" "They used bone." Threxer's voice was barely audible. One of them snapped his own radius, sharpened it against the corner of a food tray over 5 days, then used it to gut a guard. Slipped out. Disabled 2 drones with wiring from the waste disposal unit. Released the others manually. He nodded slowly. "It wasn't an escape. It was a message. They didn't leave through the front. They went down, into the maintenance shafts. Into the dark, where the guards wouldn't follow. By morning, 22 crew were dead. The power grid was sabotaged. They painted something in blood on the command room wall." He swallowed. "We are already inside." Silence fell like a dropped weapon. "We never found them. Not all of them. 2 were assumed to have died in the crawl vents, but we never recovered the bodies. Others vanished into docked vessels. Months later, a warship exploded in orbit above a neutral trading post. We think one of them stowed away and completed the mission." A cadet finally dared to ask, "Did any of them ever surrender?" Threxer shook his head. "No. A human does not surrender. They pause. They bleed. They wait. But they do not yield. It's not in them." He looked around the room. "Do you know why that terrifies us?" The cadets said nothing. "Because we don't understand how they endure it. The loneliness. The loss. The pain. And yet, they keep coming. Not for glory. Not for conquest. But because someone, somewhere, told them they couldn't." He turned to leave, then stopped at the threshold. One day, you may capture a human. You may even believe you've beaten them. He looked over his shoulder, eyes glinting. But if they smile, if they laugh in that moment, it means you're already dead. You just haven't realized it yet. The doors hissed closed behind him. And this time, no one moved for a very long time. The last stand, when the skies fell red. They called it Karex's glory. A fortress world. A final bastion. The place where the Empire would make its last stand against the encroaching tide of human retaliation. The cadets no longer spoke when Threxer entered. They didn't salute. They simply sat, back straight, eyes forward, each bearing the silent marks of fear and reverence. He looked older now. Slower. But the fire in his eyes still burned. "This is the last one," he said quietly. "The last memory I'll ever share of the human front." He inhaled deeply, letting it steady him. Karex Prime was built to be impenetrable. You could station 10,000 destroyers above it and still not touch the core. Atmospheric layers fortified with kinetic web fields. Planetary shields powered by a tri-core sun-tap generator. Ground-to-space artillery designed to melt cruisers from orbit. Our best scientists. Our oldest warlords. He shook his head slowly. And it still fell. A soft wind from the ventilation system ruffled the flags behind him. No one interrupted. "It started with silence," Threxer continued. "No fleet in orbit. No dropships. No invasion warnings. Just silence. Comms went out. Scanners failed. We thought it was sabotage, until the sky turned red." One of the cadets stiffened visibly. "They used orbital mirrors," he said. "Human relic tech. Primitive, we thought. They aligned them across the Karex sun and reflected the light down in focused beams. Set the upper clouds ablaze. That's how it began. The color wasn't from blood, it was from fire." He rubbed his eyes. "They came down after 3 days of hell-light. Heat storms. Melting citadels. Crop systems vaporized. And then, from the blinding red sky, their ships began to fall. Not land, fall. Slamming into the ground, cracking themselves open like eggs. Suicide drops." Cadets flinched. They wanted to land in pieces. To scatter. To sow chaos. Our targeting systems couldn't lock fast enough. Each impact sent seismic quakes through the defensive rings. And from the wreckage came the infantry. Threxer's voice grew harder. Humans in blood-red armor. No insignia. No comms. Just silent coordination. They didn't bother with prisoners or intimidation. They were there to finish it. He stepped forward. "I led the 9th Wall Guard. We held the eastern ridgeline for 11 hours. 11 hours of flamethrowers, rail rounds, and brute force. And for every one we killed, 2 more took their place. They weren't elite. They weren't even fresh. They were tired, scarred, limping, but they kept coming." His voice cracked. One of them was missing a hand. He charged anyway, screaming, with a blade welded to his stump. A cadet whispered, "Did they ever retreat?" "No," Threxer said, voice like iron. "They didn't stop until the command node was severed. Our planetary AI tried to reroute defense control, but they'd already infected it, fed it viral thought commands. Turned it against us." He paused. "They made our own systems believe we were the enemy. Our orbital guns fired downward. Our walls turned inward. The machine betrayed us." Thunder rumbled in the distance, as if remembering. By nightfall, Karex's skies had collapsed. Dust. Red lightning. We fell back to the inner citadel. Only 300 of us left. He clenched his jaw. Then came their final message. Not broadcast. Not transmitted. It was carved into the stone outside the citadel gate. 10 words, scorched in plasma fire. He closed his eyes, reciting it. "For every world you burned, we will burn 10 more." No one spoke. "I saw one of them," he said after a long silence. "Up close. Helmet cracked. Face burned. Could barely stand. But he raised his weapon anyway. Looked me in the eyes." He looked around the room. "You know what I saw." They waited. "Not hatred," he said quietly. "Not glory. Just duty. Pure, unwavering duty. The kind that lets a dying soldier stand in fire just to make sure you don't get back up." He turned to the wall behind him where an old, tattered banner hung, the emblem of Karex's planetary guard, charred at the edges. Karex was our last stand. And it wasn't enough. Because the humans didn't come for a battle. They came to finish a story. One we started. He looked over his shoulder one last time. "And now you know the ending." With that, he left. No medals. No applause. Just the echo of footsteps from a soldier who survived the end of an empire. And the memory of red skies.